I heard some people mad at Willie Simmons. I don't know why. Oh, yeah. He's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. And just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It doesn't mean you have to go to Saints Wire to find me. You can just follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives, but I would appreciate you going there to Saints Wire as well. Starts with an S and ends with an S. That is South Exclusives. Today's episode starts off with a little bit of a twist as we do our first mailbag question, and I hope it's the first of many, but this is our first. It wraps up with Jose Vazquez, the Alabama State baseball head coach, and how the respect that he receives amongst the coaching space is quite evident over the last, I'll say, probably couple of weeks. And then in between all of that, we have two more HBCU players who have been added to the XFL. I'll start off with the mailbag, and I'm very excited to lead off today's show with something that I don't think that we've done, and that is a mailbag question. I know that I have answered or replied or given a quick remark to multiple comments throughout the year and a half that I've been doing this, a little bit over a year and a half now, wow. But I don't think that I've ever taken a comment and turned it into a topic. But now, because of Sermon Jr. 6124, let's go ahead and pull up his comment so we can see it while I read it. So he says, or she says, I don't know. Well, it's a junior. So he says, love your show. Look at it all the time. Well, thank you, Sermon. I'm surprised you haven't been caught up in the Kill Willie stuff. He's talking about Willie Simmons. Would like to hear your perspective. A strictly analytical standpoint with no ties or prejudice, no dog in the fight. Him personally, he's with Willie. It's a sorry dog that won't protect his yard, and FAMU is like a dog tied up in a yard who's breaking the chain. No Dion, no crown. Well, first off, once again, thank you. I appreciate you for loving the show and looking at it all the time. I don't really feel like I get caught up in much of the Twitter back and forth about certain people. I kind of know how I feel most times. So I really don't get caught up in any of that. And I honestly didn't even see it. I didn't know that Kill Willie was a thing. That's what I told him in the comment. And I'm telling you that now, the listener. Didn't even know that was a thing, but we'll get back to that in a second. Secondly, you're supposed to feel like that. You're supposed to feel like FAMU is like a dog breaking off the chain. You're supposed to feel like Dion isn't there, so you're ready to snatch the crown. That's what you're supposed to feel like. Every FAMU fan should feel that way. There's people who aren't FAMU fans who feel that way. You've been good enough. There's not every team in every league, whatever sport you want to talk about, every team does not have a chance to win it all. They just don't. There's multiple teams in there who step into the season knowing that they're likely not going to win it all. And I'm just speaking from a fan base point of view. Hopefully none of your players actually feel that way. But from a fan base point of view, I think for years upon years, if you were a Cleveland Browns fan, you knew there was absolutely no way we were going to compete. And you know what? That's just what it is. FAMU is amongst that echelon of teams who know they can compete. So you should feel like you're a dog ready to get off the chain. I'll be honest with you, even if Dion was here, you should still feel like this was your year. And that brings me back to the Kill Willie stuff. I feel like we're so used to coaches being so buttoned up, so professional, so yes, sir, no, sir, politically correct. No, that's not all the coaches. So when we see a coach like Willie Simmons who is out there and says exactly what fans would say, I think we get a tad bit uncomfortable because we're not used to that type of dynamic from all of our coaches. But you know what? I don't feel that way, and I'll tell you why it doesn't bother me. I'm a Saints fan, proud Saints fan. Been that way since I can remember. First memory of some Saints stuff. We're not going to get into that, but I'm a proud Saints fan. And for years upon years, my head coach was Sean Payton. And Sean Payton had a certain swagger, a certain bravado, a certain just personality and charisma about himself on the sidelines that was different. It's not the way that many coaches operate, especially not many successful coaches. Coaches who operate that way typically flame out and they get a lot of hate because you have to back it up with a certain amount of success to be that way. I remember one time it was the Saints versus the Falcons. Don't ask me the year. I think it's somewhere between 2015 and 2018. But Devontae Freeman was carrying the ball for the Atlanta Falcons, and he fumbled. And Sean Payton put up the Reggie Miller choke sign to him. And you know what? There's a lot of coaches who would not do that. There's significantly more coaches who wouldn't do that than would do it. But we had one of them. And I always said that I felt like Sean Payton kind of embodied the city of New Orleans at times with his charisma, with his showmanship, with his just overall bravado. I felt like it just fell right in line with how the city operated. And that's exactly how I feel about Willie Simmons. Willie Simmons was on the Jeff Lightsey show because in trying to figure out, the kill Willie stuff, in trying to figure that out, I had to do my research, see what Willie was saying recently, see where he's been, listen to the interviews. I had to check these things out. And in there, he talked about how they brag different with FAMU. And that's exactly what Willie is. That's exactly what he's doing. And you know what? He did say the one thing he wished he didn't do was put Jackson State's name on it. Not out of cowardice, but because that for him crossed the line of trash talk that he wanted to do. That for him went from just pumping up FAMU to bringing down another HBCU, which is not at all what he wanted to do. I don't even think I would have apologized for that. I don't even think I would have felt like that crossed the line. Let these coaches talk trash. Let these coaches talk trash, because at the end of the day, it's making things better. I understand. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I understand that coaches are typically buttoned up. I understand that coaches are typically the standard of professionalism as a representation of a program, team, school, whatever we're talking about. I get it. But let the coaches talk trash, because that makes things even more fun. Now, do I understand what his comments have done? Yes. Willie Simmons' comments have now painted a target on the back of himself and FAMU. But I'll be completely honest with you. The other side of that coin is that target was already there. Maybe, most likely, definitely, Willie Simmons painted it in a brighter color. I'll give you that. But people are already looking at the Orange Blossom Classic. Jackson State wasn't going to sleepwalk through that game. The one thing I will say his comments have done is made it to where if he does lose, he's going to have a whole lot more than just, you lost to Jackson State for a third year. He's going to have to hear that. I'll give you that. But I like it. Let's get the trash talking going, man. Like, let's forget all this cookie cutter stuff. Like, let's get coaches who talk trash. So if you're asking for my pure analytical, no dog in the race perspective, I like coaches who talk trash and do it well. Willie Simmons has won 9 games in the first 2 years he's been in the SWAC with FAMU. You deserve to be able to talk a little bit of trash. You deserve to be able to bump up your team a little bit. You deserve to embody what the fan base is, and the fan base is one that brags different. So if you want to know how I feel about Willie Simmons and the kill Willie stuff, put your knives away. There's no reason. Put your knives away and pull out the popcorn. This is a show. This is pageantry, as he said. This is trash talk. This is fun. This makes things better. Now, I don't know how bad the kill Willie stuff is, because I'm just going off my friend Sermon Jr., 6124. But if people are really up in arms about this, and I've been able to miss most of it, if people are really up in arms about this, you ain't really trying to have fun. Like, let's, in the words of the Joker, why so serious? Now we'll move forward to a situation that is, I would say, undoubtedly fun, and at least very happy, very joyous. And that's the fact that we have 2 more HBCU players who are going to be in the XFL next year, as they have had their exclusive rights claimed in the XFL undrafted free agent pool. And we'll dive into that as we continue with Locked on HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs, and Bird Dogs are the most comfortable shorts in the world. If you were wondering what shorts you should wear during the NBA draft, hopefully you wore your Bird Dogs. If you're wondering what you should wear on Saturday after you go run your errands that you're gonna do on the weekend, hopefully you pick Bird Dogs. I think that they're just so useful for everything. You can move around. It's hot. I live in Texas. It's hot. Like all caps type of hot. I want my Bird Dogs because they have the anti-stink wick material, basically meaning that down under it is not going to be funky. So give me that. Give me that 9 times out of 10 and give me Bird Dogs every day of the week. Go to birddogs.com/locked on. No promo code needed, but if you go to that website with the /locked on college, so that's birddogs.com/locked on college, you'll get a free Yeti tumbler with your purchase. And as we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every single day. I hope you enjoyed the Locked on NBA mock draft, and I would love to go back and see exactly how it all lined up. Let's see how accurate it was, see where everything went. That would be fun. But if you missed it and you want to go back and look at it, after the fact, Locked On NBA Big Board is where you can find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, moving forward, Kemari Averett and Justin Ragin are being picked up by the St. Louis Battlehawks of the XFL. And I just wanted to make sure that you were completely up to date with the HBCU movement within the XFL. I kind of feel like we've done that twice this week. We've had 2 topics about it. So I didn't want to wait and, probably counting on me to deliver this information to you. So I spoke on the XFL HBCU showcase. I spoke on the XFL rookie draft and the 2 players in Kinsler and Mitchell who were actually selected in that draft. But then they also have the UDFAs. I did not know that was coming, but the XFL they're really trying to do it all the way, like the NFL. You have a draft for rookies. You have an undrafted free agent pool afterwards. And in that undrafted free agent pool, there were 44 players who were selected, and 2 of those guys were HBCU products, and that is Kemari Averett and Justin Ragin. Now, I think these should play by the same rules. In the XFL rookie draft, if the NFL, right? If the NFL comes calling before the end of December, right? I'm not going to get the specific date because I know I got it wrong last time. But the end of December, if the NFL comes calling, you're good. But the USFL, CFL, I don't think can come call. I think that is how it goes. But for Kemari Averett, I think this has to be a real special moment, a real sigh of relief, because since April, so these last 2 months, they haven't been great for Mr. Averett. They haven't. And he spoke about why he felt like he wasn't picked up as a UDFA. And I don't want to call it a conspiracy, because that feels a little too drastic. I don't know his exact words, but conspiracy feels a little too far on the spectrum. But he feels like basically people are worried about his past, and he feels like that's the reason he wasn't picked up. So here's the situation. Kemari Averett, before he got to Bethune-Cookman, was with Louisville, right? Louisville, are they the Cardinals? The one in Kentucky. I think they're the Cardinals, but that didn't sound right. I know it's a bird. Anyway, Louisville. He was with Louisville, and he had a legal situation in which I believe he has been proven innocent of. He's been proven innocent, not guilty of the alleged crime. And I'm going to be extremely vague because I don't want to this is a delicate situation, and I don't want to get the wrong specific out there, right? So I don't want to get the specifics incorrect. So I'm just going to be relatively vague. But I'm pretty sure he was proven innocent of this. Now, I think the problem with Averett, or for Averett, is the fact that this is not his first offense of any kind. Right? He's been in legal issues before. And I think when you combine the past with what just happened that got him out of Louisville, now you're looking at a situation where it's like, I don't want to bring this guy in. But we're going to specifically look at that case because that's one that Averett pointed at. I think about a month ago, I think I heard that. So you're looking at Averett in that case. Well, he's been proven innocent. And in his mind, his innocence has been proven. and it shouldn't be held against them. But I think we all know that allegations have a knack for sticking. Whether or not you beat them or not, they have a knack for sticking. And it seems like that's what's happening in Averett's mind. Basically, the NFL don't want him. I looked at the USFL draft. He wasn't drafted there. So once I seen that, he wasn't picked up as a UDFA. Once I saw that, I'm like, okay, now we need to look at the XFL. And he wasn't selected in the XFL rookie draft. I'm like, okay, it's looking slim. It's looking slim for him, okay? Because at this point, I'm like, well, you just got to wait till the next XFL draft or wait until the next USFL draft. That's what my mind is thinking, because I didn't think about these UDFA contracts. Now he ends up getting picked up, and I know it's probably like, oh, sigh of relief, finally moment, because you felt like you just deserved the chance, and you've been it's been taken away from you for something that you didn't do, right? But I don't want to only speak about that, because essentially, if I only talk about the journey, because the journey is terrible, the outcome joyous, journey terrible. If I only speak about that, I'm essentially defining Kemari Averett by what that situation is, and I think that's something that he would not appreciate, right? And I don't want to do it that way. But you're looking at him, as far as height goes, huge target. Red zone target as a tight end. You just naturally feel like he'll fit and be a red zone threat for you just because of his size, right? And then you're looking at a player who is used to being the go-to target on a team, as he was with Bethune-Cookman for the 2 years he was there. He didn't have great quarterback play, in my personal opinion, in his senior year, but you still seem to be prolific. He's a former all-SWAC player. This is somebody who has the frame, the experience, former D1 recruit. You feel like all of those things are something that, at the worst, you can work with, develop, and try to build into something more than just a UDFA in the XFL. Now, the other guy, Justin Ragin, and that's the person I want to highlight now, and he doesn't have this long story, but he does have a really good career at Jackson State. However, he was on a team with James Houston. He was on a team with Aubrey Miller. And when you have two stars like that, especially Houston, who was on the defensive line with them, when you have players like that, sometimes you can get overshadowed. And I don't really hear people speak about Ragin as much. I hear people talk about Gaddy, and I heard them talk about Gaddy before he left, but didn't really hear Ragin's name much in the pre-draft process. Didn't really hear much about his departure. I don't know. Just wasn't a topic of conversation as much as I thought it would have been, with a guy who had 10 sacks last year, 16 tackles for a loss, both of which who led the team. So this is a player who, he retired, or not retired, but he ended his career with 19 sacks, 39 and a half tackles for a loss, 6 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, 3 pass breakups, 2 blocked kicks in 34 games. So you're looking at a player who has run stopping ability, pass rush, game changing ability, special teams ability. That's a lot. That's somebody who shows a lot of potential. If we're going to talk about the frame and the experience of Kemari Averett, we have to talk about everything that Justin Ragin brings to the table, as well as a multifaceted lineman, defensive lineman, who also gives you special teams ability. That's essentially a trio. That's essentially a triple threat, excuse me. And both of these players will actually be teammates as long as they make it through the process and everything, as they've both been picked up by the St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL. So now we have 4 HBCU rookies who are coming in. Kieran Kinsler, you have Robert Mitchell, Kemari Averett, and then last but not least, Justin Ragin. And 2 of those players will be teammates with Averett and Ragin on the St. Louis Battlehawks. And going forward, I feel like the respect that Alabama State baseball coach Jose Vazquez is receiving this offseason is something that needs to be highlighted. So I'm going to break that down. And you know what? This is sort of kind of like our feature Friday at the end of the show instead of the top of the show. And we'll wrap this up as we continue with Locked on HBCU. And as we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. I thank you 2 times for that. And I want to break down the respect that Alabama State head baseball coach Jose Vazquez commands, because I truly do believe that it really speaks volumes about the job that he has done since he was picked up in 2016. And I think that statement, the respect that he commands, is quite clear. I think that's shown in the 2 opportunities that he has been offered and one that he has taken in this offseason. So he has a potential new job and he has a new partnership. That potential new job is with Jacksonville State, the baseball team. They want him to come on and be the head coach. He's going to interview for that opportunity. Now, Jacksonville State has lost their coach at 22 seasons to retirement. And I think that when you lose a coach of that magnitude for that tenure, you're looking at something or someone who can make a splash. You're looking at someone who can come in and be a 15-year coach. You're not looking for a 2-year fix after you have a 22-year guy. You're not looking for something like that. It's not, okay, well, we had Darian Gray for 22 years, so we're going to go get Gray Darian and see if he can make it a month. No, I'm going to pick up Gray Darian because I feel like he can at least get half of that tenure. So I think when we look at the resume towards the end of the show, it'll be clear why Vazquez is a guy like that. But that is the potential job because he's going to interview. We'll see if they offer it to him. We'll see if he does get offered. Does he even take it? Bunch of different things. But then the reason I said partnership specifically, that wasn't a slip up. That was a specific choice of words. In the second one is because we're talking about the national collegiate team, the USA national collegiate team. And this is a job that he can still be with Alabama State. It's a partnership, right? It's technically a job, but it doesn't interfere with what his real duties are as the Hornets baseball coach. So the position he's joining with that team is as the first base coach. And his pitcher, Omar Melendez, will actually be a part of the national team, right? I want to get it correct. The USA Collegiate National Team. You have Melendez as a pitcher. You have Vazquez as a first base coach. And this right here is not something to be taken lightly because you're looking at Vazquez and what he has done is what has garnered him this opportunity. You're looking at him being called basically one of the better coaches. He's not an intern. He's not getting a freebie. He's out there because he's one of the better coaches in collegiate baseball. And I think he's shown it over time. Let's break down his resume. And just look at what he's done and why Jacksonville State wants him to be their head coach, why the USA Collegiate National Team wants him to come aboard on the coaching staff. And it's not because Melendez is there and you just want to have his coach there. When you look at what he's been able to do since coming to Alabama State in 2016, he's recently got his 200th win. And this was his first head coaching gig that counts towards these 200, right? When we're talking about Alabama State. He did that this year after winning 41 games. This was the first time that a SWAC baseball team has won 40 games in 20 years exactly, actually, since 2003. And if you just want to go specifically to him, if you want to go specifically to what Vazquez has done and not look at team success and just only look at his accolades, he's a two-time coach of the year. Led a team to a SWAC championship in 2022. In 2023, no, they didn't win the SWAC, but they were by far the most dominant team in that conference. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even remotely close. How much better I felt like they showed themselves to be during this season than everybody else. He coached that up, and you can't win the championship every year. Right? Bill Belichick and Tom Brady went undefeated all the way to the Super Bowl and lost. But were they the most dominant team that year? Yes. Yes, they were. And I know it can be kind of uncomfortable to say, especially so close to not winning the SWAC championship. And it's like, well, you didn't win it. So why are we even saying that? We're just identifying what Vazquez has done and what he has created for the Hornets baseball team. Two-time coach of the year, dominant force, the first team to win 40 games in the SWAC period, right? All season since 2003. This is a guy that deserves his flowers, and his flowers come in the form of being offered and taking a position with the USA Collegiate National Team. It comes in the form of being offered or interviewed for the Jacksonville State baseball position to take over for a 22-year veteran who is retired. Those things aren't taken lightly. Both of those things are high praise. And I don't say this Jacksonville State job to say it's better than Alabama State or whatnot. It's just to say that people are coming calling. I don't care if you're in the SEC, which in my opinion is the highest form of collegiate football. If you're in the SEC and you're not in one of these powerhouses and people ain't calling for you, they probably ain't really feeling you like that. Just be honest. Like, if you're good, it doesn't matter where you are. Jobs typically come calling. You might not hear about it because they get turned down quickly, but if you're good, jobs will come calling. And I think that jobs calling is also a sign that you're doing good. And hopefully it's a sign for you to continue making us your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back with some of the biggest stories from over the weekend on Monday's episode of Locked on HBCU. I can't wait for this. I'm super excited for what's coming up this week because I just have this feeling, right? It's my birthday week, so I have a feeling that things are going to go really well. But I guess I just have to get off the mic and wait until Monday comes around. So in the meantime, in between time, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.